You remember that? This ain't your night. My night, I could have taken Wilson apart.
Help, here comes McDonough. McDonough hits, shoots, it, scores! Ryan McDonough! Gensel, angled off by Borgensen, in front, score!
I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody. Instead of a bum, which is what I am. Let's face it.
Why does everything you touch turn to garbage?
So, yeah, I took a little bit of classic cinema for anybody who's seen On the Waterfront to talk about the New York Rangers and their current plight. And, of course, good news is, Phil, Family Guy was able to add in a little bit extra hurt into all that. Welcome back, everybody. It's been 2 weeks. It's been too long since the last time that we've been here. I, of course, am your host, Mark Williams. Oh, look, I had a great night, UBS Arena, Billy Joel, first New Year's with my wife, and also the New York Rangers are in last place. But fortunately, to give you guys extra perspective, I'm always joined by the ever-vigilant, ever-vibrant Mr. John Falkowski.
Vigilant, yes. Vibrant, that's up for debate right now. But, yeah, we're interesting times here in New York. Really interesting times, especially with the way the last few years have gone, and both teams being very competitive, and now both teams are basement dwellers. What's going on here right now?
I know, and it's just like, I mean, just like what the Marlon Brando says. Hey, kid, it's not your night. Could have taken Wilson apart, is what he says. Actually, as a matter of fact, he says Wilson right there. So I forgot if I cut it there. So the Rangers could have taken Wilson apart.
You could have made a Castaway reference too.
Yeah, well, I could have done that one as well. But that is where we are right now, Phil, and let's go to the A block, where it is the New York Rangers, once again, being the story of the NHL for all the wrong reasons. And the A block, of course, is powered by SeatGeek. Use the promo code Big Apple Hockey, $20 off your next order. And I'm going to be using SeatGeek because next weekend, going to Vegas, Phil. Going to see the Rangers next Saturday night in Vegas. God only knows what that's going to look like, especially to the first place team in the Pacific Division. And also the Islanders are going to see that one. So going to have our third Mark on the road in Vegas. Don't worry, I am going to go to other arenas. Big Apple Hockey trucker hats and shirts are available. Click the link below. But Phil, going right back to this, it's a new low for the New York Rangers. You look at them since November 20th, 4-15, worst in the NHL, most losses by far. Power play is down to 12.7%. Do you remember when the Rangers were power player bust? Now they're just bust. Barely above the Islanders. 72 goals allowed, worst in the NHL. By the way, they also have a goaltender that they're going to pay $11.5 million to. But, you know, it's the defense's fault all by itself. And lastly, 40 goals scored, which is also worst in the NHL. And mentioning that goaltender, Phil, Igor Shesterkin is on IR with an upper body injury. The Rangers officially hit last place in the Metropolitan Division. Phil, think about this one for a minute. We compare this to 92-93, where they hit last place in the final week of the season. They just hit last place, and it wasn't even the new year. It's unbelievable. I'll pull up the stretch that we said was going to be the make or break of their season, and it broke them. Phil, is the season over?
Yes. Normally, I would say if the team hadn't quit the way that they have, and it's so easy to see, then yeah, you could sit back and say, hey, you know what? Maybe there is a chance that they rebound. And while technically it isn't over, it doesn't seem like this club wants to move on from Peter Laviolette, which I totally get. It's not his fault. The players come out and they say they have no problem with the coach themselves, but just as Larry Brooks said, this team has quit on not only the coach, the general manager, who they probably where the animosity is built up towards, I would imagine. They quit on the fans, the city, the entire organization, and themselves. And it's pathetic. This is one of the most pathetic things I've ever seen. I was young. I was still in like the dawn of my infancy watching the 93 Rangers. I didn't understand what was going on back then in the turmoil between Nielsen and Messier. I had no grasp of it. But there were definitely some things that contributed to them. When it's funny. I watched the season opener from 93-94 against the Bruins the other night on YouTube. And the numbers with and without Brian Leach were night and day in 92-93.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that was a big part of it. You can talk about the injuries and how you believe he sustained them is a completely another story I'm not going to get into, but he was out, and that was a big loss for them. This year, there's not really an injury you can point to. It's just a bunch of entitled crybabies who were not happy about the way certain things went down. And they forgot that this sport is a business. Like, if you're not going to be productive, then you're probably gone from where you are, despite whatever trade protections you may or may not have. And you know what? If they were that offended, they were that unhappy over the way things went, you know what? The door's that way.
Yep.
Don't let it hit you on the way out. And Chris Drury, like I can't say I'm the biggest Chris Drury fan. I think he's partially to blame for all this because of the way that he's mishandled it. But the one thing that he's right about is the fact that he identified this group wasn't good enough to win. And that's a guy that's got a Stanley Cup. He's been there. He knows what it takes. These guys just didn't have it. And if they're soft enough to the point where they're going to fold like a cheap suit after all that, then it only just proved them to be right furthermore. So this group, I've been saying it for years now, question the leadership, didn't like the Trouba pick as a captain. It's all kind of come full circle now. Here we are. I mean, we're at a point where the entire group quit, and we need to move on. And I honestly, I know that no one's ever going to tank purposely, but this team is quit. And the best thing for Chris Drury to do is just to sell off the assets that they can sell off by the deadline, and then hope that they finish and get the first overall pick, take James Higgins, and watch James Higgins and Gabe Perreault together for the next 10 to 15 years at MSG.
The good news is they could be together on the fourth line with the New York Rangers. This club, I wrote about this when the Kakko trade happened. And Phil, stop lying to the fans. First, let's go with that one. Stop lying. You lied about the letter. You said you wanted to draft, you wanted to rebuild. They decided to take the shortcut. Jacob Trouba was a terrible addition in the end. Let's call a spade a spade. He was not an $8 million defenseman. They paid him to blossom into the next great defenseman, and instead, the Rangers wish he could have been Dion Phaneuf on the Maple Leafs. Like that's what they wish. They barely got it.
Maple Leafs on the Flames.
No, but they wish they could have gotten the one on the Maple Leafs.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to say with that. Phil, this is now you got somebody who's going to tear it down. Whether or not he's worthy of that, we're going to discuss that in a second. But it's just you got to rip it down to the studs. And the first thing, everybody on every level was lied to, especially to the fans. Management and ownership said they were going to go down, get draft assets, develop young talent, build a contending team for years. Who's on that Rangers first power play unit? Alexei Lafreniere. We're in year 5. Now he's on first power play 1, drafted first overall. Really? Kakko hasn't seen the first power play unit since 2019, and they replaced him with Ryan Strome because they really needed to develop Ryan Strome. So let's start with that one. Coaching. The players have quit on 2 coaches already, and now a third. And it's been clear to us since November. Larry Brooks wrote this article like 2 weeks or like this week. Phil and I have been saying this through November. But Jacob Trouba was checked out completely. And you want to be all upset about the trade? Okay. You don't think you should look inward at any moment? Because the Jacob Trouba I saw overplayed himself several different times, Phil, in the Eastern Conference Finals and got clowned by the Florida Panthers on the power play. Need I bring up Game 4 in overtime? This is how funny things are, Phil. We're not even out of the calendar or just finished the calendar year, 2024. If the Rangers got one more bounce, then they would have possibly taken a 3-1 series lead and maybe won that series. And who knows? Maybe they win the Stanley Cup.
Then
this still might happen. But what?
Mika Zibanejad hitting that post.
Yes, there you go. There you go. And maybe that it could have been that simple. Instead, they have folded like a deck chair. And I mean, and some of them probably folded on their own because there's a whole lot of wind out there today. And then lastly, the players. Just again, they're quitting. This is what it takes to quit. Chris Kreider, everything he's done in his career, everything he's overcome. This team showed immense intestinal fortitude last year, and you're like, this team can battle through anything. Now, I'm not even sure if they could even. I'm not sure what they can battle through. And Phil, we go back to this stretch that's right here. As I ran out of metaphors trying to do this, this was the stretch of games in the month of December. I said it before, I'll say it again. And to quote the line from Rounders, if you can't spot the sucker in the first 30 minutes, you are the sucker. Guess what? The Rangers are the sucker, Phil. They're not even giving overtime losses.
They were the fish.
They're losing to the worst team in the league. They're getting clowned by the best teams in the league. You still got Boston and Washington. After that, it still doesn't get any better for them. The best thing that could have happened right now, oddly enough, is Igor Shesterkin going on IR. So, because again, look, everybody, we can't say this enough. That's a stupid deal. Never mind terrible. It's a stupid deal. And my only question about that before I completely condemn Chris Drury is, did that, and let me ask you this, Phil, do you think that order could have come from up above him?
What, in terms of the memo?
No, never mind the memo. How about re-signing Shesterkin?
If that came from above, if that was like Glenn Sather whispering into James Dolan's ear and they went and did that, I have a massive, massive problem with that. And I don't understand how Chris Drury, because he identified that this team was not going to win and not capable of winning it all, like well before this. And that's why he started getting rid of pieces like Goudreau and Trouba. Like, when you identify that the team is not good enough, why in the blue hell are you going and paying a goalie $11.5 million when this goalie needs a mental reset every damn year? Like, there's always a first half struggle with him. And then he picks it up in the second half. Oh, and then he has great playoff numbers. Okay. Why
doesn't matter when you don't make the playoffs.
It doesn't matter when you don't make the playoffs. Not only that, but why is it that when the defense fails, everybody blames the defense for everything and no one can blame Igor Shesterkin for anything? But when Connor Hellebuck fails in the playoffs because the team in front of him can't get it done in the playoffs, Connor Hellebuck is the problem and not the team. But why is it that the guy that's led the NHL since 1920, who's led the NHL in saves and shots against 3 times, won a Jennings Trophy, won 2 Vezinas, and is now leading in not only every significant counting stat, but the analytics as well? Why is he the problem, and how is Igor Shesterkin $3 million per year better than him? I don't say it. I don't see it at all. I can't understand how they gave him that contract knowing that this team wasn't capable. Like, do you not understand how timelines work? Like, this is a guy that just turned 29 2 days ago on the 30th. Now you have a goaltender that's going to be 30 when in the first year of his deal, and you're going to rebuild. You're going to get rid of all these guys, which they should. They're going to rebuild, and now you're going to have you're going to punt 2 to 3 years, maybe even more away of this deal. This is a fireable offense for Chris Drury. I'm sorry, it is. It's a fireable offense because that deal should have never happened if you identified over the summer that this group wasn't good enough. All they had to do was just kept letting it go on and go on and go on because this would have continued, especially with Igor without a contract. We now see that he's not mentally strong enough to handle the pressure of having to perform while trying to play for a new deal, apparently. So his numbers would have just kept plummeting and plummeting and plummeting. And, you may have gotten him closer to $9 million at that point, if that's what you wanted. If you wanted to keep him. But what's the point now?
Yeah.
What's the point? Now you have a goaltender that doesn't fit your trajectory. And what are you going to do? You're going to do another soft rebuild where you go and sign the next big guy? What, they're going to go get Connor McDavid in 2026? Great. I would love to get Connor McDavid. Who the hell would not love to have the best player of a generation, probably going to be a top 5 player of all time? But what are you doing around him? And how are you going to formulate a team when you're going to have to pay him probably like $16 million because he's worth every friggin' penny? And then you have an $11.5 million goaltender whose contract is going to age like rancid milk left in the sun. Like, I don't understand this. I really don't. There needs to be a purge from top to bottom.
And yeah, 100%. And first off, by the way, I've been late to the party. I was excusing them for a while. The first 2 people that got to go.
Hold on. Got to address this first.
Okay.
Season is not over, but we need to do something real fast. Have cap space. Drury needs to use it.
Nope.
What and who are available?
There is no move that's out there. Hold on. Let me just do my best Rick Pitino impression for a second. Mark Messier, he ain't walking through that door. And Brian Leach, he ain't walking through that door. Henrik Lundqvist ain't walking through that door. No.
Who?
No.
Like, someone tell me who. And
you're not getting Mikko Rantanen. So let's start that.
Because Ottawa's playing better, and they're shutting that rumor down. So good luck with that one. Who is coming? Who is available?
There is no one. There's nobody that's available.
Asked the same thing several times on his 32 Thoughts podcast.
And there needs to be that purge from top to bottom. And the first guy I'm firing is Jed Ortmeyer. Bye.
Yeah, God, he's got to go.
Who are you?
As your talent development?
Yeah.
Like,
look,
no.
I had no problem with it originally, Phil, because I would talk about it and go, you know what? Gregory Campbell was the head of player development when it was with the Panthers. All you got to do is just put the players in the right situations. They don't have a plan. They really don't. And right now, first off, kudos to the guy that's playing the best this season, which is Filipino. But I mean, Cooley's developing. Berard looks like he could be good. So there are times where I look at it and go, okay, Drury, it was some of his talent, decision making. I do like the possibility of Sikora coming up eventually, but you got to address the talent that's right here, right now. Ryan Lindgren, goodbye. I've been done with him since the turnover against St. Louis that Jordan Kyrou basically clowned him.
You know what? That's another thing that pisses me off. You had all these defensive pairs that were working properly. You had a guy that was injured, and this team was playing well. The minute he comes back, Laviolette starts screwing with the defensive pairs to assimilate him back in the lineup when he's not even that great.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here?
I mean, one of the comments that I got right now on Instagram, this team started to collapse when Drury traded away skill for strength. We haven't had a top line since. Look, I know what you're saying with that because you're signing Buchnevich, but the thing is, at that time, Buchnevich's contract was going to expand. The Rangers were going to start signing extensions. They had to do that. Was it the right move now? Well, you know what? Phil pointed this out a while ago, back when we first started the show. It was either Pavel Buchnevich or Chris Kreider. They chose Chris Kreider. And Chris Kreider, I know he might have a back injury, but like you got to see what you can get for him. Phil, I know that everybody's laser focused on the fact that Mika Zibanejad said he's willing to waive his no trade clause.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know where that. No offense to Dave Pagnotta.
Yeah,
but
we've had on the show.
There are some things where he's been right on, and there are some things that he's been terribly wrong on. So I mean, I don't know who he's hearing it from or anything like that, but I don't know if I'm buying that.
Well, Phil, let's continue on that line of thinking. Let's say he is willing to waive. Where's he going?
I have no clue.
Like what team's going to look over and go?
I have no clue. But you know what? Even if you get rid of him, and let's just say Vancouver is like, okay, we'll entertain you and we'll send you JT Miller, but you got to add to Mika Zibanejad. Okay, let's just say that. Let's say that happens. What does that do for this team that clearly needs to rebuild? You get a much better player, you ask me, in JT Miller. That's the same age, that's had locker room issues. Like, I just.
And I've also heard some other rumors about him that I'm not going to get into.
So have I, and I know people firsthand. So I'm not gonna say who or what, but I've heard stories. So I can't really say that JT Miller, like, I like the player a lot. I do.
I don't think he solves any problems.
But yeah, again, I don't think he solves the problems. I think you need to get rid of this core. I think you do. Artemi Panarin has not shown up when the going really gets tough. And we all love Panarin because, I mean, he's probably the best free agent signing in team history. He's worked his way up the scoring charts, the leaderboards for, franchise history. But are you going to win with a guy like that? I don't see it. I don't see it. I think you need to do what Florida did, and you need to make the big culture-changing move. It's not available right now, but you need to get away from this softer, more free-flowing brand of hockey, and you need to go and start making changes to build towards the future.
And Phil, we'll wrap this up in 1 second on this, but let me just go to my invisible notes and just check something. Oh, yeah. Chris Drury played on the Calgary Flames under Daryl Sutter. That was sort of a hard-nosed thing. Sorry, I didn't know I was going to get a thumbs up. He also played on the Colorado Avalanche under Hartley. That was a bit of a hard-nosed team. I know everybody wants to go on how skilled and successful that they were, but that was a team that played hard. Oh, they played hard under Lindy Ruff, too. And even he played tough minutes under John Tortorella with the New York Rangers. So Chris Drury, he doesn't want this finesse stuff. So is it looking bad on him right now? You know what? Yeah, but you don't judge the general manager by right now. You judge the general manager usually within a couple of years. And it's the same reason why when everybody wants to go, oh, Jeff Gorton and John Davidson had a plan. What plan? What plan did they reasonably have? And how's their rebuilds going? So now look, are there things about Drury I don't like? Of course there's things about Drury I don't like. But I'm willing to give him a little bit of slack. It's difficult at times. Do not get me wrong. It is very difficult at times. But Phil, let's shift gears for a second. We don't have Anthony, but we're going to go over to the Islanders for a minute because let's go with a tweet that Anthony put up. Because speaking about teams that need a retool, Anthony put this up. Just like the New York Rangers, it's time for the New York Islanders to retool and move on from its core. Move Nelson, Palmieri, and Lee at the deadline. In the offseason, look to move Pajot and one of, if not Pollock or Pellick, and use the cap space to get younger, faster KHL top free agent. How do I pronounce that? Shabanov?
Yeah, Maxim Shabanov.
Yeah. Sprinkle in Danny Nelson and Cole Yzerman, who are both looking really good at World Juniors right now. Phil, should the Islanders begin a retool?
Yeah, I've been saying this for a bit. It's another team that's just stuck in. I said this after they lost the second time to Tampa. It's you got there twice, you weren't good enough. This team's not good enough. And their one real chance was 2021 when, if they would have beaten Tampa, they would have faced Montreal, and that could have been their Stanley Cup that year. Mm-hmm. And I think I do think they would have beaten Montreal. Like, can you say it for sure? Obviously, no, it never played out. But I think they would have beaten Montreal.
Just to throw one thing in, I do think the Islanders didn't match up as good against Montreal as Tampa matched up against Montreal. I mean, that's
fair. That's fair. I mean, it's a reasonable opinion. I think they could have beaten them, but that's just me.
Could have. Yeah.
It's gone on for too long. And Lou Lamoriello, a lot of players say that they like him because he's loyal to those players. I mean, he's shown a lot of loyalty, more than I think he should have, to Matt Martin. I mean, Anders Lee, he stuck with Anders Lee, didn't move Anders Lee when a lot of people, including myself, were saying that he needed to move on from Anders Lee, and Anders Lee has kind of rebounded for them a bit this year. But yeah, this is a team that definitely needs to move on and go in a different direction. I mean, they got a good pick in Yzerman. Whether or not Yzerman ends up being like a top goal scorer at the NHL level, we have yet to see. But he at least looks very good as a prospect. He's probably the best prospect I've seen in terms of like fanfare and everything, at least since Barzal, but maybe since Tavares.
Yeah.
This was a guy that was supposed to go much higher in his draft year. And Barzal, a lot of people thought Barzal could maybe possibly be a 1C in the right situation when he was a prospect. A lot of people always referred to him as a guy that, was going to be more of a playmaker, really didn't have the shot or anything like that. And his skating was great. And that's what he ended up actually being. He is literally what everyone said back then. But Yzerman looks like he has a shot to be like a legitimate 40-plus goal scorer. And it would be the first 40-plus goal scorer that they've really developed, since Derek King? I mean, you could say Anders Lee for that 1 year, but like
Zygmunt Palffy?
Yeah, Zygmunt Palffy probably then at that point, I would say.
I mean, Mark Parrish, I don't think he got to 40.
No, he had 30 in 01-02.
Jason Blake had the Panthers 40, developed him anyway.
But like Jason Blake wasn't drafted and developed by then. So, but I mean, really, it's Palffy. Like there's not a lot of guys that have really had the success for the Islanders that they've drafted and developed over these years. So Yzerman looks like he could be that type of player. I mean, Danny Nelson looks like he could be a very good middle six, maybe even top six player. He seems like a guy who could fit somewhere maybe on a second line, as a complimentary, two-way option, I think. That's just what I see. I could totally be wrong about that. I've been wrong before. I'll probably be wrong again. But I like what I see from both of those guys in this tournament for Team USA. I mean, Danny Nelson was pretty good last year too, so I'll give him that. Yeah, but they need to go in that direction. They dealt off assets for Horvat. They got a good find with Siplikov. And, he comes in, they get him for nothing. He's playing well.
Yeah.
Just change the direction of the team and just get high picks, sell off assets, because you're not going to win with the group that you have. The only problem with that is that you have Barzal making a lot of money that he's sort of not worth. I mean, he's like a $7 to $7.5 million center, maybe 8 at most, and he's making $9 million. And then you got Horvat, and I really struggle to find somebody who would be willing to take on Horvat's contract, because I mean he's 29 right now. He'll be 30 in April, but he's got another 6 years left at $8.5 million, and to me, he has not played up to that contract. Like, you're going to tell me that 33 goals and 68 points last year is worth $8.5 million, and that 2023, that start that he had with Vancouver, where he had 31 goals and 54 points in 49 games, where he was shooting well over 20%. I mean, that ain't gonna work. It's not gonna fly anywhere else. It's really not.
Yeah, and I gotta agree with you on that. I think they overpaid for him, but they kind of needed to if they're going to get him and get him to sign. I don't kill Horvat as much, because when you lose both your line mates, but then if you're making $8.5 million, you got to show me something. If I'm saying the same thing about Mika Zibanejad, I got to say the same thing about Bo Horvat. And at least you have a Bo Horvat, you have that intangible of watching him grind out every single shift. Whereas you get some other guys that you're like, I don't know if they're even trying out there. The retool has to start. And it's actually, I think it's been starting for a while, because the one thing I've said about the Islanders is I like their top 6. I don't like their bottom 6. And maybe a little bit of revamping in their defense too. Pelican Pollock, there's just a lot of miles on those tires. And I think that's what happens when you're physical defensemen that are blocking a lot of shots and taking on a lot of top line minutes. It just wears down. I think you move on. If you move on from any of them, you probably have to move on from Pellick, as much as that might be heresy.
Oh yeah, but then again, who's going to take him when he's another one, body held together by duct tape. He's hurt all the time.
Yeah, and it's hard. Look, is he a quality player? Of course he's a quality player. Any team would take him. But you don't know about that contract. That's one thing. And you just don't know, again, how many more miles are on those tires, to use the same metaphor again. All right, let's go right to the obvious guy to move out, Kyle Palmieri. That's an easy one, because he's been good for the Islanders. No problem. Local boy, grew up in was born in Smithtown, living out here. You'd love for him to be able to stay, but you got to get back some assets, see what you got down in the minors. The hard question is Nelson. We've talked about this for so long with Brock Nelson. And I think the Islanders need to be so far out of playoff contention, Lou doesn't think they have a shot, and then approach Nelson and see what his thoughts are. I worry about him becoming a free agent. I know Nelson's going to be loyal. I know Nelson likes it here. But if you can get top dollar for him, because he is unprecedented, Phil, that he has enjoyed so much success from age 29 on. That can't last forever.
He's not having a great year this year. I mean, he's on pace for like maybe 45 points. He's got 21 in 38 games after the last 2 years of having, I believe, 69, and then he went like at 75. I think the year before, 75 the year before that in 2023. So he's looking more like the Brock Nelson of 2014 through 2018, like the pre-Barry Trotz era right now. And I'm not saying he's playing that same lazy loafer kind of way that he did back then. I think it's gonna. You're right. You really want to get a lot for him. But with his age, the lack of term left on his deal, I mean, centers are always in demand. Like, that's the good thing for Lou Lamoriello here, is if he did want to move him, and Brock Nelson said, hey, you know what? If you need to move me, need to sell off, cool, it's fine. We'll talk in the offseason. Sell me off, and let's see what happens. Centers are always in demand. But he's having he's having his worst year in a long time. Very, very long time, which is not good. And it's coinciding with him being 33 years old. So is this the start of a decline for Nelson? Has his best years already passed? So listen, I don't know, but it's definitely something I would explore either way if I'm Lou Lamoriello, because I don't know how you could take a look at that team and be like, oh, well, you know what? Just because the injuries, they would be so much better if they didn't have the injuries. I don't think so. I don't.
Injuries are part of the game.
The injuries, one, they're part of the game. Two, they lost Barzal for a bit. They lost Duclair for a bit. They get the guys back, and they're still not playing all that well. So, to me, I think it's very clear that it's time to move on. But one thing that Anthony has said, and he's been kind of right about it, is that Lou Lamoriello does not like to sell off.
Yep.
And if that's the case, that's going to hurt this team more than it's going to help. And I don't know, Josh, I really don't know about that. I really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they haven't quit on Waugh, but I don't think they're any closer at this point. Maybe by a smidge, if anything, but neither team is close to a Stanley Cup.
Not at all. I know he might want to stay closer to the Rangers, but I mean, after all, guys, Igor Shesterkin could win the cup on his own. That's why the Rangers made a mistake. They should have paid him $20 million. Because let me say this: one thing that's good, and get used to that. I'm going to be saying it a lot over the next 8 years. Ilya Sorokin signed, still playing well. Signed to a reasonable amount. You would like to see more production out of guys like Mayfield and Engvall since they're signed for forever, but at least the AAVs are down. There's their bottom six. When you looked at them when they were successful, Phil, that bottom six was just as lethal as the top six, and they can shut you down. They can make you pay in the corners. Now it's just they're top heavy, and you don't see the effort night in, night out. I just don't know what Patrick Waugh does, but we're going to talk about him more in a minute, everybody. So I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, guys. So we're going to take a quick break, get a message from DraftKings, and then do some NHL Bar Talk. Because they moved around some of the assets on me right here. Got it. Hockey fans light the lamp this winter with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New customers can bet just $5 pregame money line on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. If that wasn't enough excitement, you can turn small bets into bigger payouts with same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more for your shot at an even bigger payout. Download the DraftKings Sports app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at the DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN.
Shot. This is the easiest I've ever to answer.
I'm going to say beer. I can't even begin to describe.
I'm actually going to go crazy. I'm going to buy everybody around on this one. And welcome back, everybody, to Big Apple Hockey's Bar Talk, where we're gauging our confidence on these NHL topics based on our choice to drink. Are you so confident that you're buying everybody around? So have a beer. Or, oh, God, I need a shot. Guys, play along down in the comments below. Feel free to do it. And you know what? If suggest a Bar Talk topic, and Phil will pick one out for you guys. Phil, let's go back to the 20 here's the trade. But let's go back to the NHL draft, back when the Rangers took Kakko, and they traded him away to Seattle right now doing pretty well in Seattle, Phil, and he's talking about how his confidence is up for William Borgen. But let's go back to that draft. Jack Hughes goes number 1 overall. And then the Rangers take Kaapo Kakko. Kirby Dach goes to the Chicago Blackhawks. The Rangers should have taken Kirby Dach instead of Kaapo Kakko.
Beer, I mean, what do you want to say? Hindsight is 2020. I mean, Doc has had injury issues. He's been hurt almost every year. The guy looks like he's the modern day Marian Gaborik. I mean, potential is there, but I mean, I don't understand what you would get out of Kirby Dach at this point, because it's just he's hurt all the time, and for a guy his size, it almost reminds you of like Eric Lindros in that aspect, where he just misses so much damn time. No, you know what? I'm gonna go shot. Shot. I know that they talked about Zegras, that if they didn't move up in the lottery, the pick probably would have been Zegras. I personally, I don't think Zegras is someone you win with, but I think Zegras would have definitely helped this team a little more than Kakko at this point, because Kakko, I think he is what he is. Unless he fixes his skating, he's never going to get the confidence to be able to attack the middle. So I'm going to say shot. Doc, like you could sell me more on Moritz Seider than you could sell me on Kirby Dach.
Yeah, because I'm going to go shot on that one too. Because I know Ranger fans might be out there saying, hey, you know, they could have taken this kid. He's good. Kirby Dach has had a ton of injury issues. Kaapo Kakko was impressing everybody. He was the consensus number 2 overall pick. Again, this is going back to what we thought back then. So if anybody else comes out after, like, I mean, when it's the top 2, you take the other guy. That's what it is. And I know that the Devils fans are circling around it, or the video of the Ranger fans cheering about it. I mean, that's why you don't cheer at the prospect. You go, yeah, all right, you're happy about it. You don't exactly give a standing ovation. But it's just as far as they goes with that, Phil, too many injuries with Doc. He's moved on to a different organization. And I mean, he's been getting his play hasn't been exactly that great. So automatically just say, now, if you want to say the Rangers had traded down and taken Doc, that's a different story. Because at least it would have gotten back something else. Phil, the Islanders have 35 points. They're 7th in the Eastern Conference. And 7th in the Metro. They are 13th in the Eastern Conference. And you got to wonder whether or not this season's going to really branch out for them. But Patrick Waugh right now is on the hot seat.
I'd say yes. This is what now his second full season that he's been there.
This is his first full season.
Okay. Wait, when did they hire him?
January last year, I believe it was January 20th.
Oh, that's right. It was in the middle of last season, not the season before. I forgot. Lane Lambert got to finish out that season. Yeah,
and they stuck with Lane Lambert for a while that year.
Yeah, I mean, I have to think so, because this team has gone downhill, and he's made some questionable decisions. There was also that, you know, clash with him in those comments earlier on this year. I don't understand how he's still there. I really don't. I personally, I would have moved on from him. I don't think he's that great of a coach. I don't think he's a terrible one, but I don't think he's great either. He didn't last in Colorado, and then he wasn't around NHL for almost 10 years because nobody wanted him. He went back to juniors. And I think he's probably better served in juniors than anything. So I just overall, I think the Islanders just need to purge, like, top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that if they miss the playoffs, I do think Waugh is gone.
Phil, I got to buy around on this one too. I know we had the naughty or nice list last week, and Patrick Waugh made the nice list from Jim and Anthony. I had him on the naughty list. I don't see how he's a long-term solution for the New York Islanders. If you want to point to the roster, point to the roster. But that roster was still good enough for Waugh to coach him up and get him to third place in the Metro. I made the bold prediction that I thought they were going to get all the way to second in the Metro this year because I didn't think any team really improved that much. Obviously, New Jersey and Carolina have proven me wrong. But, Phil, just tactical decisions by Patrick Waugh are really head scratchers, such as we talked about before, pulling your goalie, the face-off in your end on the penalty kill. What are you doing?
I saw that. I laughed. I didn't know what he was doing there. I have no idea. I really don't. I'm still dumbfounded by it. I don't know what to say. I've never seen that before in my life, and it's a total head scratcher. It doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter. You don't do that. You don't do that. You don't pull the goaltender when you're on a penalty kill and you have
in your own end.
Net. It's just God, it's so bad. I would put that in a in a book for like how not to coach.
Yeah.
Like how not to coach for dummies 101. Obvious things you do not do. That would be near the top of the list, if not the top of the list.
And Phil, this guy was one of the most mentally tough players ever in NHL history. I could say so many superlatives about him to compliment how great of a job he's done. But I got to tell you, Phil, as a coach, especially his last, now we're up to 5 years of since his I think this is his 6th season, and he made one playoff appearance, made one in half the season with the Islanders, one in Colorado. And then what else has he done? Just it's gotta be more than his name, because his name isn't doing it enough.
Yeah.
Let's move to a guy that used to score on Patrick Waugh, and a guy that has been scoring on a lot of goaltenders. Because in that game against Pittsburgh, Sidney Crosby got his 1,035th assist, passing Mario Lemieux. Actually, it's 1,034th. He did get another one after that. Passing most all-time for a Pittsburgh Penguins. Currently 86 points behind Mario Lemieux. And, just 3 Stanley Cups by him. Sidney Crosby will have a better career than Super Mario.
I'm going to say shot. And the reason for that being is Mario Lemieux, I believe, is a 5-time MVP. Crosby's not winning another MVP. And I get it. Crosby's got a ton of accolades. He's got the 2 gold medals for Team Canada at the Olympics. He's got 6 100-point seasons. He'll probably not have another. But 3-time Pearson, 2-time Art Ross, 2-time Hart, 2-time Rocket Richard, a Messier Award, 2-time Conn Smythe winner. But Mario, he's going to pass Mario in points and assists. But maybe he even passes Mario in goals. But Mario is just, the trophy case is even bigger. Mario got 4 Pearsons, 3 Hart trophies. Sorry, I thought it was 5. Gretzky took a lot of those away from him. 2 Conn Smythes. The trophy case is close, but Mario is just, he's considered by many to be probably the second most dominant player of all time behind Gretzky. And if it wasn't for Gretzky, Lemieux would have had probably at least 6 MVPs and possibly even more. Mario missing 94 hurt because Sergei Fedorov got the Hart that year. Maybe Mario gets the Hart that year if he plays and scores like 140 points or something like that.
Well, he played in 94, 95, the short season.
Yeah, he didn't play, but he didn't really play a whole lot in 94. It was like maybe 20 games. It wasn't a lot. I mean, he missed like some big years in which he could have gotten the MVP. And then, Brett Hull getting the MVP, I think in 91, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was 91 because it was the second of his 3 years. It was the 80 goal year because he had the back-to-back 70 goal years, and the 80 goal year was sandwiched between the two 70 goal seasons. And Hull took an MVP away. I gotta say, shot here. Mario's still gonna have the better career, if you ask me.
I'm gonna pay Sidney Crosby the ultimate respect and say beer here, only because of this. When you think about it, it's amazing because I'm looking at some of the comments, Phil. Both Mario and Sidney went number 1. They both had dominant Hall of Fame centers that they ended up playing in front of, as in Evgeny Malkin for Crosby, Ron Francis for Mario Lemieux. They also Lemieux had Jaromir Jagr develop under him and really become that dominant player. Obviously, this is just for a talking point. Crosby's got an extra cup. Both of them had a goaltender that was drafted number 1 overall that they won cups with. Although in reality, the last 2 cups were Matt Murray over more so than Marc-Andre Fleury. But like it's just amazing when you start looking at the similarities between their careers. I mean, Chris Letang versus Paul Coffey too. We could even go into that one, or Larry Murphy for that matter. But I look, and you want to talk about, Sidney, maybe if he didn't have the concussions, Lemieux had cancer. So, I mean,
he had the cancer issue in the back. I mean, I do think that if Crosby didn't have the concussion issues and he didn't miss the, part of it, those 2011 and 2013 seasons were like big losses for him. Because in 2013, he only played 36 out of the 48 games, and he was leading the NHL in scoring when he stopped. Marty St. Louis eventually passed him to win his second scoring title, but he would have, if he stayed, he would have won the scoring trophy. He would have won it by a lot.
Yeah.
And then obviously 2011, he has 66 points in 41 games. That's a 132 point pace, rather. Sorry. I mean, that's ridiculous. So maybe without those issues, I mean, you're already looking at him with over 1,700 points. He's probably closing on 18. He might have a chance at 2,000, but it's still going to be a tough sell in 2,000.
I know. And look, those of us that watched Mario know how great Mario was. And that's why sometimes when people try to anoint McDavid at number 5, I have to stop and go, or number 6. Because to me, number 5 is set. Number 5 is Mark Messier all time. After that, I put Crosby.
I love Messier, but McDavid has done things already that Messier hasn't done.
Did he win a cup
He's
yet?
already got more MVPs than Messier. He's already got more scoring titles. I mean, he doesn't have the cups, obviously, but that's a team accomplishment.
Well, Messier still had 2, and yes, the team accomplishment has something to do with that. But let's move to another guy I would easily put top 10 all time, but he's in a different role now because, Phil, nothing says Merry Christmas like firing a guy the day after it when Steve Yzerman let go of Derek Lalonde. But the Yzerplan is failing in Detroit.
Yeah, this kind of is like what happens when you don't have the core pieces that were kind of in place there. They had Stamkos and Hedman already in place. Yes, He drafted Point. He drafted Kucherov, drafted Palat. A lot of that, you do have to give credit to Yzerman. But there were two very big pieces in place.
I think I might have a third one.
Vasilevsky too, he drafted. So let's, we got to give him credit for that as well. But I mean, he had two big pieces in place. He didn't have these pieces in place in Detroit. The one thing I will say is that he uncharacteristically has taken big swings on like mid-level veteran free agents that I did not expect him to make. Like Patrick Kane, okay. Like if you wanted him to be your last piece, okay, I understand that. But like JT Compher, Andrew Kopp, like you really thought that these guys were going to be guys that were going to put them over the top and get them into the playoffs? Like to me, I just don't see it. Yeah, yes, Sandin Pellikka is having an amazing World Juniors. First game gets a hat trick. Probably could have had 5 goals in that game. Sebastian Cossa and Trey Augustine are like a goaltending duo of the future. And yes, Simon Edvinsson looks to be the part so far. You still want to see more from him, but again, there are pieces there, but it's not really doing the job. And I don't think that he gets fired. I think it's another one where it's like, okay, mutual parting of the ways. It's presented that way because the Red Wings organization is not going to embarrass its prodigal son. Or maybe you should say, because Mr. Hockey is Mr. Hockey. I would call Yzerman the prodigal son.
Oh, by the way, Phil, was that a shot?
Oh, it's a round for me. Sorry,
it's a round. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with beer on this and follow my thinking on it because you mentioned 2 big pieces that they had in place in Tampa when this all started. I'm gonna go to a third piece in a second. But one reason why the Yzerplan really isn't working out, yes, you're talking about the free agents. Those big swings on free agents, Phil. Like, what are you thinking? And the DeBrincat move is somewhat worked out. Yes, he had Dylan Larkin in place. But one guy he's not been able to, there's 2 places he has failed greatly. The net. And one guy that he had in place in Tampa, nobody seems to talk about. Again, there's balloons. I forgot about these hand gestures that Apple has on there. All right. Phil wasn't even trying on that, but Phil, one guy that everybody keeps forgetting in Tampa is John Cooper. He brought in John Cooper. Like, there's no John Cooper walking through the door in Detroit. They were actually after Lane Lambert. And then the Islanders got rid of Trotz in order to keep him. And imagine that. Imagine if Lane Lambert went to Detroit. Oh, my God. Buzz, your girlfriend, woof, as you would say. But, I mean, and part of it, I look with Yzerman, they were 1 point away or a John Tortorella misread of a situation to being in the playoffs last year, because they would have, if the Capitals would have either lost in overtime or tied, or just lost in regulation, the Detroit Red Wings were in the playoffs. Not the case. So he hasn't been able to find his guy. And the hard part is, Phil, as far as the coach goes, there's a coach that's out there that would be perfect for him to bring back in Sergei Fedorov, but you can't do it when your job's on the line and not midseason. So I don't know. And McClellan could possibly do something, but I don't know.
Man, I don't know. I really don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I get people are going to talk about new blood and how smart of a player Fedorov is, and Fedorov's one of the best, most complete players we've ever seen.
And speak about the prodigal son coming home.
That's a tough sell for me. It's really tough to gauge coaching in other leagues. It's just because sometimes it just might not be enough. It might not translate.
And you know what? I think that would have been a move for like 2 or 3 years ago. Not now. This team is supposed to be competing right now, and it's hard to do that with a first-year head coach.
Yeah.
All right, let's look over to the central standings, Phil, where up top, no big surprise, the Winnipeg Jets, they started out hot, and they've been on top of the league ever since. Minnesota, 50 points. Colorado, 46. Colorado has turned their season around after a couple different times. We said that they're in trouble. And the Dallas Stars at 45 points, a team that some of us have predicted to be in the Stanley Cup Finals. Phil, by the way, I think it's year 4 is it year 4 or is it year 3 of Pete DeBoer in I think it's year 3. So we're getting near Pete DeBoer's expiration date. But Phil, Dallas Stars will be a wild card team. I'll start this off. I'm gonna have to say beer on it, Phil. I don't think they're going to be winning the division. I don't think there's that hot streak that they're gonna jump all the way up. Maybe they're trying to figure out what their formula is for the playoffs. I wouldn't like that right now because Minnesota is playing outstanding. Look, all credit to John Hines and of course Kirill Kaprizov and what they're doing and Phil Gustafson. But I don't know. I don't think the Stars are trying to go for the division lead, and I think the Stars are going to be comfortable wherever they are to make it. That team's a wild card team. Look out to whoever gets to play them in the first round.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that Dallas could be a wild card team. I'm not sure if I'm sold on Colorado. I know they just made the trade for Blackwood. I'm not totally sold on him. They're 1 point behind Colorado, but they have 2 games in hand. They have 2 games in hand on Colorado and Minnesota, and they have 3 games in hand on Winnipeg. And I honestly like their roster better than any other roster of those 3 teams. So I'm not worried about Dallas. Like Tyler Sagan's been out. That's been a big problem. And Tyler Sagan, 20 points in 19 games before his injury. Like Tyler Sagan was back. He was back at 33 years old. Like this was the year for Tyler Sagan. And then that happened. So, but Matt Duchene is just under a point per game. Jason Robertson, okay, it's time for you to really step up and become that 100-point player again. Mason Marchment has been a story for them. He was like a point per game for a while. He's 27 and 33 right now. Jamie Benn started hot. It's fallen off a bit. He's getting up there in age. Wyatt Johnston looked so good last year. And I kept saying, this is going to be the guy that's going to be the number 1 center for this team in the future. He needs to start playing like it again. So I think there are guys that haven't played their best hockey yet. I'm going to say beer. Just because I do think they will turn it around, but it is possible that they may not be able to make up the ground after a certain point.
By the way, Phil, just to mention one stat line, and not even about the Stars. Kenzie Blackwood, 6 games with the Colorado Avalanche, 5-1, 936 save percentage, 185 goals against. Those numbers are going to get worse, but man, those are some good numbers that he's putting up so far. You know what they should do? They should re-sign him, which they did actually.
This comment's great because it's so true.
Yeah. Josh, 100% on that one right now. Yeah.
How do you take a team seriously after they lose this shit show in New York? Oh man.
You know what? Do you know what would be great, Phil, if somebody on our panel said that the Stanley Cup final was going to be between Nashville and the Rangers? Oops. So anyway.
I don't think that was me, was it?
No, it was me.
I think I had maybe the Rangers in Dallas. I think
you might have been Rangers Dallas. I think Anthony was still saying Carolina, and I had to dig up the season preview, but it's yikes. I have never been more wrong about 2 teams before, and yeah.
Oh wait, man.
Let's go to a team that's outside the playoffs that is also kind of underachieving this season, Phil. The Vancouver Canucks, 3-3-4 in their last 10 games. And they are right now still sitting behind Calgary. The Canucks will not make the playoffs.
They've got a game in hand on Calgary, 1 point behind. I don't know if I trust Calgary. That's a team that a minus 10 goal differential for Calgary. I don't know how they make the playoffs with a minus 10 goal differential. You know, I think Thatcher Demko is now back. So that is a big boost for them. But there's problems going on in this locker room, like big time problems. So Demko came back. I mean,
he hasn't been playing.
In his last 5, he's 2-2-1. Actually, he's 2-1-2 in his last 5. So I can see them making it. I think Calgary's not going to make it. I'm going to say beer, but I'm leaning towards shot on this.
Yeah, I'm going to go first. There's the beer for you. Let me get that shot glass up for me, Phil. No, they're not going to make the playoffs. I'm not a big believer in them, and that's Central. Phil, if you ask me right now, are the Rangers going to it's not the Rangers. Jeez. Still worried about them. Don't worry, they're not doing anything. I understand Vancouver's got 42 points, but I can't help but look at Utah and think they might be the better team or over the long run out of that, even though Utah's got their faults. St. Louis, Jim Montgomery is getting their stuff together right now. They won the Winter Classic, and which, by the way, the NHL really effed that up. I'll get into that in a second. You got that those are the two teams in the Central that are on the outside looking in. You got the Flames still overachieving right now. Seattle's trying to get back up. I think they're going to run out of time, but that's still 3 teams that are ahead of the Kraken. Sorry, not the Kraken, the Canucks. And you're just not seeing that consistency out of the Canucks. That's where the problem is. When you're an inconsistent team, it's not really going to happen. I don't see the Canucks making it. So, I'm going to go shot on that. They're another team. Like, how did they fall this badly? But it is what it is with them. Hey, Phil, Canada, 2-0-1-1. 10 goals for, 7 goals against at the World Juniors. And that's after they lost 4-1 to Team USA. Bilk, Canada is in serious trouble at the World Juniors.
Yeah, this is probably the least impressive Canadian team that I've seen in a while. They lost to Latvia, which was a great game if anybody watched it. One of the most entertaining games that I've watched, just because it reminded me of the 2014 Olympics when Canada faced Latvia and Krzysztof Zgulewski's almost put Latvia past Canada. That would have been probably the biggest upset in Olympic history. But yeah, this team doesn't have the game breaker that it's had in years past. There's no Bedard, there's no Lafreniere, there's no Tavares, there's no McDavid.
There's no Mason McTavish.
What?
There's not even a Mason McTavish.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I think Brandon Yager and Easton Cowan are probably on that level. And their defenses got some names on it, like Dickinson and so on. But they're just, I was saying this to myself. I was like, who is your linchpin on offense?
Mm-hmm.
Who is your linchpin? You can't say McKenna, even though he's shown flashes. He's shown you why he's probably going number one next year. But he's not that guy right now. He's just not. And they don't have that guy. They have a well-balanced team of complementary pieces, if you ask me. But there's no guy that's really the focal point of their offense. No guy that they can build their offense around. And it shows you they have a +3 goals differential. They have 10 goals in 4 games. That's not good enough. It's not. So for me, this team, they didn't even get to one of the top 2 spots in the group. They needed a point against USA, and they needed Finland to either tie or lose. And Finland won. They beat Latvia, and they just got dominated by the U.S. So, I mean, Berkeley Catton, really? That's your guy? That's your guy? Okay, good player. Berkeley Catton reminds me of Peyton Krebs. I remember when Peyton Krebs was at the World Juniors, everybody was talking about how great of a two-way player he was going to be at the next level. Same with Curtis Lazar. What did Curtis Lazar turn out to be? A fourth liner. Curtis Lazar got hyped up to no end. They talked about him as one of the greatest World Junior performers of all time and all this other stuff and how he was so great. Listen, I'm not trying to bash Berkeley Catton. I just don't think he's that great of a player. I don't. And my point still stands. There's just no guy on this team that you are building your offense around. And that's why they're in trouble. The U.S., even after losing McGroarty, even after losing Snuggerud and Gauthier, they still have those guys. You know, yeah, exactly. Canada, when they won, they just didn't have Bedard. They had McTavish. Yeah, and you know what? Some of these guys are close to McTavish, but I'll concede. I think they're close to McTavish, but they're not McTavish. They're just not good enough. So, yeah, but you know what? William doesn't need to be dominant. He doesn't. The team is a much better team. The U.S. is the best on paper. Is the best team. They're the best. They're the best team on paper. They have the best goaltender in the tournament, even though he hasn't played like it. I think Leonard Felbergs has been the best goaltender in the tournament for Latvia. I think he's been amazing. But Canada, their goaltending has been Ivan Kovic, that's your guy. He hasn't been that great.
Yeah, Phil, you took the words right out of my mouth about Canada's goaltending.
They just have not been great. George is your goaltender. So I just think this team. There's a lot of problems with this team. A lot of holes right now, and you know what? They might not even medal, and that would be if you go to the World Juniors for Team Canada and you don't medal. The amount of shame that you have to carry for the rest of your junior season is not something you want on your shoulders. Oh, man, that would not be good for them.
Yeah, I think the only other team that would be more embarrassed was the 1980 Soviets going back to Russia without a medal, or sorry, without a gold medal. I mean, they're like, well, they lost to college kids. What were they, drunk? But
yes, I know they didn't medal last year. I know Czechia beat them, and that was a massive upset. But you can't. If you're a Canadian kid, you have to medal. You have to at least medal, because if you don't, shame. Just get the freaking Game of Thrones gif.
I know. I gotta get that. And it's funny because that's the boss from Ted Lasso. But it's one of those things, Phil. I can't help but say this. Look at the Four Nations tournament as a good example of it. What happened to Canada's goaltending? Canada used to have goaltenders to spare. You look at the 2010 Olympics. You had Brodeur and Luongo, and I forgot who was the third string on that team. But I mean, now you look at the Four Nations. Jordan Binnington, Aiden Hill, Sam Montembeau. These are your answers in net. In the meantime, the U.S. is rolling out Vezina Trophy winners, guys that were playing really well up until this year, Jeremy Swayman, and like you got guys like John Gibson, which is still sitting at home. It's interesting to see where this is going to go, Phil. But Canada really has to take a good hard look in the mirror after this. You're losing to Latvia now. And you might want to say, sure, the goalie stood on his head, but Latvia was able to cash in on that 6-on-4. And because it was the power play that I believe they tied the game on. And like, I was watching the game at the bar with a bunch of hockey fans, and we were kind of relishing Canada's demise on this one. I mean, sure, Finland beat the United States right after that. So that's a different story. All right, Phil, let's go back to the Winter Classic. Hey, Phil, do you know when the Winter Classic was?
It was yesterday.
I honestly thought it was today.
They did that. All right, so they did that because of like 3 college football games on today. And today, supposedly, the Texas ASU game was one of the wildest games in football ever, according to multiple people that have texted me about it. So
yeah, and they did have the playoff games yesterday, and they also scheduled a healthy block of games. Phil, the NHL really needs to revamp the Winter Classic.
It's not just this. It's I wanted to. It's funny because I've seen multiple people on Twitter that are mutual follows of mine suggest a full day of multiple Winter Classic games, multiple outdoor games at big stadiums, and I like that idea. I do, but it's got to be with teams that deserve to be there, that are good teams. Not the Chicago Blackhawks just because they have Connor Bedard. They got dominated in that game. And rightfully so, because that's not a good team. And you put them up against a halfway decent team in St. Louis. And that's what happens. That's why it made no sense to me for Chicago to get another outdoor game. After being as bad as they are the last few years? No. Why?
Phil, it's amazing that they gave him this game. We first guessed it when they announced it was going to be Chicago. We're like, all right, great. So you're putting Bedard in there. The NHL has done a great job. Sorry, let me correct that. They did a great job early on with the Winter Classic. It was the only game in town. They had a 4-week build-up on HBO for the road to the Winter Classic. And you started, if you were a fan of these teams, let's say you're watching the 24/7 of the Rangers. We know how much I love the poem that's at the end of that. The HBO did a great job with that. Where do you find the road to the Winter Classic now? That's for starters. Put on ESPN. Thank you, Amazon. Sounds great. Put on ESPN. Let's get more eyeballs on it. I understand Amazon's building up their products, and that supposedly the NHL series on Amazon's good. Let's worry about that. Build up the drama to the game. And then one thing that they used to do, they used to schedule a game in week 3 between the two participants. I don't think St. Louis and Chicago played last week or recently to kind of get that like fire going. See, last week, and yeah, they had the Winter Classic.
Mr. Michael, you can have multiple Winter Classic games on in the same day.
Yeah,
you just can't have any other NHL games going on that day.
Yeah, you can't have 10 that day. So great move by the NHL. And on New Year's Day, look, you were afraid about going up against the college football games. Well, that's why you don't put it on New Year's Day then. Then you got to give up New Year's Day. However, they were doing it and they were getting great ratings. So first off, stay away from the college football playoffs. Let's start with that. Then, all right. So now the other thing is, I do like the idea of multiple ones on the same day, but I don't want to take away from what the Winter Classic is. And I do want the Stadium Series to be in there because lesser teams that don't, as you said before, didn't deserve to be in the Winter Classic, you give them another game. Like, for instance, Islanders Rangers. That's got to be a Stadium Series game. Rangers versus Red Wings. That's a Winter Classic.
This comment's hilarious. I'm sorry, it's funny.
Yeah,
it's so true. Thank God that was in February of 2024, not February of 2025. This Ranger team would get spanked. Oh.
Well, it would have been the first half of the game just for 60 minutes, because there's a reason why they had to come back. And oddly enough, the guy that tied the game was Mika Zibanejad, and he did it on a one-timer. Who'd have thought? You know, he could actually score a goal. But Phil, not enough tension is on the Winter Classic. I honestly thought it was today. I thought it was today. And I'm going through it. And granted, yes, I ran around.
Didn't we have this same discussion about the Stadium Series last year?
The same,
or was it the year before where nobody knew when the Stadium Series game was?
2 years ago, when we had that we didn't.
That's right, because the last year was the Rangers. We all knew that one, but a lot of people across the NHL didn't know when the Stadium Series game was 2 years ago because they did like little to no advertising for it.
Exactly. And then you put it on a date against something else. Look, the NHL is always going to have to fight against something else. Now, and the funny part about that Stadium Series game is I believe that was the Nashville game. And it got good publicity, got a good crowd. They put on a good show. But the thing is, the NHL needs to, first off, they need to get a whole new PR team. That's a different story. And allow them to market players. So that's another thing too. But you didn't even know the Winter Classic was today. And they put it on 5 o'clock yesterday against college football playoff games anyway, and it didn't click. Don't put the worst team in the league in there. And just because they were good 10 years ago, because the Blackhawks have played far more Winter Classics than everyone else. And I understand you want to try to keep an original 6 team in there. They didn't want to have Canadian teams in there for a while. And then it was, all right, we're just going to get the popular teams in there. Next year, they're talking about the Florida Panthers. That sounds good. Hopefully, they're talking about the New York Rangers against them. Look, you're going to get a lot of people to watch the Rangers, whether or not they're good or bad. But on the other hand, the Rangers bottom out. I'm not sure if I want to put the Rangers in the Winter Classic. I want a team that's going to be competing hard in the Winter Classic. How about and by the way, feel free to think outside the box. The Cotton Bowl was a great idea a few years ago. Keep going with that.
Does anyone remember who the first ever outdoor game actually was?
I do. I remember everything about it, including our call.
Happened right before a major move in team history, too.
Yeah. The first Winter Classic was in, I believe it was 2008.
No, I'm not talking about the Winter Classic.
Oh, sorry. Oh, you're talking about the first outdoor game in modern NHL history. That'll be right outside of the MGM Grand in 1991 in September. So, by the way, first off, put one in Vegas. And secondly, that was right before the Mark Messier trade. And Gretzky was in it. It was nearly a disaster. However, if I recall correctly in that game, Phil, I think Doug Waite and Tony Amonte both scored in that game.
I know Amonte did for sure. I don't remember if Waite did or not.
I know Waite did. So that was
So then they both did then, because I remember Amonte scoring.
And if I recall correctly, in the original Winter Classic, it was in Buffalo, and I think the first 2 goals came in the first 30 seconds of each of the first and the third period.
Yeah.
And of course, Crosby winning it with snowflakes coming down.
Yeah.
It was picturesque. All right, guys, that's the end of Big Apple Hockey's Bar Talk, and we had our big discussion right there. We have 200 of you guys watching. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button for us right now, as I covered up Phil's face the last time I did it. Let's get that one down below. You don't want to cover up that pretty face. Come on, guys. And make sure you're hitting that like button for us. But Phil, one thing you can't help but notice right now between what's going on with Team Canada and the NCAA route and the U.S. development program, American hockey development, either in the U.S. National Development Program or the NCAA, is closing the gap on the Canadian hockey development, the CHL. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, if this is a bar talk topic, it would be around.
Mm.
It would absolutely be around. We're starting to see more players coming from. I don't want to say totally unconventional, because there's a lot of hockey here, especially on Long Island. But you're starting to see more places coming into play when it comes to developing players. Like, you have Austin Matthews California born or Arizona born, California raised. We've got guys coming out of the woodwork in New York, Long Island. James Higgins could go number 1 overall this year. Matthew Coronado is playing well for Calgary right now. He was a first-round pick for Calgary a few years back. We've got Chris Higgins, Mike Komisarek, Eric Nystrom, Chris and Peter Ferraro in previous years. Other guys from Long Island that have all come up and have played in the NHL from Long Island. So it's great to see. It really is. NCAA in general is really starting to pick up steam too. A lot of players are, trying to get education and play hockey at the same time, and they're doing well with it. The other thing I would say is that the rule changes are going to help this out quite a bit. Now that CHL players can go play in the NCAA, I do think that this is going to be an even bigger avenue, and you're going to see a lot more development. American-born kids that see that they can make it to the NHL through college hockey programs are going to say to themselves, hey, you know what? If I can go to this college and play on this team, maybe I can make the NHL. And that's it. More players are going to enroll. More players are going to sign up and try to make these teams. And that's another thing. I think it does something for Europeans as well. And I think the other thing is that physically, I think these kids are going to be a little more ready, because not only are they playing against kids their age, they're playing against kids who are a little older and slightly more developed. And it's a little bit of an easier schedule, because you're not getting, it's not a 70-game schedule. And, it's towards the week. You can get an education and do other things in practice while you're doing. And I think and John Radigan brings up a good point here. You're going to see more schools go D1. Yeah. And you had a club team beat University of Denver, the number 1 ranked team in the nation. And they were without Zeev Boyum. Okay, fine. But should a number 1 ranked team, even without its best defenseman, beat Denver? No. I don't care who they were missing. This is the top ranked team in the nation, and a club team beat them. And yes, it's an exhibition game, but that does a lot. That really does a lot. I don't think enough people understand how monumental of a win that is for UNLV. So,
and I think that's more of a win. Yes, Denver could use those excuses. Oh, they're missing Zeev William. They also can. I think it's more that it goes to the credit you would give UNLV for even being able to show up on that ice, and that is a program that's starting to gain some steam. Our friend of the show who did a great job when he was a guest of ours, Jim Dowd, his son is over in Arizona State. I believe they're ranked now. Arizona State is ranked. Frozen Four in Vegas in 2 years.
That's big.
Yeah, that's huge. And
That's
look,
big.
they're expanding the NCAA. And that does have a lot to do with coverage. And you're always going to get Canadian kids that are coming to the NCAA and playing. Phil, look, I'm going to go back to something I said earlier when we were talking about the World Juniors. I'm not sure if this is even a topic anymore. I think the U.S. passed them. I think the U.S. is starting to blow by Team Canada. Sure, Canada's still got guys that they'll churn out like Macklin Celebrini, Connor Bedard, all these other great players. It's not like the U.S. guys are any slouches like Jack Hughes or Austin Matthews, to say a few. But
that I want to stop you right there. That's a big thing. I don't think we're talking enough about this. The fact that a Canadian kid in Macklin Celebrini bypassed the juniors and went the NCAA is massive. It's massive. And not only that, but now he comes up and he's probably going to win the Calder. I'd be shocked if he didn't at this point. Adam Fantilli is another one. Yeah, he was a high-profile pick. I mean, the fact that he went to Michigan was massive. You're starting to see more and more go that way. And you know what? Fantilli hasn't hit stride yet. But when he does, he's going to be a hell of a player.
Yeah.
Celebrini is already showing at 18 years old that he's one of the better players in the league. He's about a point per game player right now. I did not think that he was going to be this good this soon. I figured Celebrini would be someone who finished with maybe 50 to 60 points somewhere. He's 27 points in 28 games.
Phil, did you see that Will Smith goal that he assisted on the other night?
Yeah.
He was on his knees and got the puck.
Good.
Oh, my
Stupid
goodness.
Good.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
not only that, but Celebrini is the type of player that you want to build an absolute winner around, because not only does he have the top end skill, and you got to remember one of the things that I said about him, the thing that I liked the most about him, was that he was probably the most well-rounded prospect I think I've seen in my time covering junior and prospects and everything. This is a guy that understands both sides of the puck. It's like getting Steve Yzerplan at 18 years old and having Scotty Bowman already there to teach him the other side of the game. Because Yzerplan was the guy that was 150-point player, 130-point player, great offense, no defense. And then Bowman came along and changed everything. Modano, same thing with Hitchcock.
Yeah.
50-goal guy, 90-point guy, point per game every year. And then Hitchcock comes along and changed everything with him. So,
would you say, by the way, that Bowman did the same thing with Lemieux?
Yeah, no, because Lemieux was a better defensive player than some give credit for, but he wasn't a great defensive player. But he always had that in his head. He was always the type of guy that I want to do everything I can to get that puck back. That was really his motivation.
Phil, but again, I can't help but point this out. Going right back to our discussion just a second ago. Where the hell are the Canadian goaltenders? Can we get one? Can we get one that you point to and go, damn, that kid's good?
That
Sam Montembeault might be the best Canadian goaltender. Are you kidding me?
Remember how it went? How for a while it was Canadians and everybody was talking about the butterfly and how Watt changed everything, and Canada was a goaltending factory. And then the Finns came along. And and the Finns were the factory, and they were producing guys like Lettinen and Rinne, and Hannu Toivonen was actually one of the big three prospects at one point. Tuukka Rask. I mean, all those guys were
I think Niittymaki started games for Finland in the Olympics and the Flyers.
What's that?
Niittymaki.
Yeah, and Tero Niittymaki for a while was a decent goaltender. But, everybody was talking about Finland as the next big goaltending factory. And then when that stopped, Canada got back a little bit of the guys. But then it became the Russians. It was Vasilevsky and Varlamov and Bobrovsky, and then Shesterkin and Sorokin, and and Mika Kiprasov, another great Finnish goaltender that I somehow overlooked. Can't believe I did that. But I mean, and we forgot to talk about Cale Makar going and play the friggin' commercial that they're airing on NHL Network. Hi, I'm Cale Makar and I play college hockey. Hi, I'm Adam Fox and I play college hockey. Hi, I'm Jake Gensel and I play college hockey. All these guys coming out and saying that they play college hockey. But I mean, it's just funny how the cycle moved to another country, and now we're talking about Americans. Now it's Hellebuck, it's Swayman, it's Ottinger, and now you may have the next great American goaltender, Trey Augustine.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, and that's where.
Yeah, that one, this one.
Yeah, hi, I'm an idiot, and I watch my favorite team is the Rangers. Yeah.
Oh, good.
But that's the way we feel right now. It's the way we all. That's the way we all feel right now. But Phil, it's amazing what's going on with Team Canada. Just when the last time there was a referendum on Canadian hockey like this was probably after the Nagano Olympics in '98. And they came back, won gold, 2002. They were out in 2006, but that was because they chose the wrong team. You could argue there was another referendum there. Then 2010, they come out with the team that wins the gold. They win gold 2014. 2018, nobody gives a crap about. Still does. And even 2012, 2022, I mean. So it's interesting to see where we're going with this. That's again, just I can't help but point to and go, where's the Canadian goaltenders? Willie Scredia has this on there. How do you guys feel about denying pucks knocked in from the air being disallowed if scored from behind the net or in the trapezoid? I don't know where I've heard that.
What?
I think he's saying that they're not going to allow that. Somebody might have suggested that it's got to be either on the ice or and in front of the goal line. I would be, if that's a rule change that they're actually considering, I'd be against that. 100%. Yeah. Because by the way,
why are we trying to reinvent the wheel?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. Because after all, one of my favorite goals that I've seen over my lifetime was the one where Gretzky took the shot, and I think it hit, might have been Yzerplan Lumi in the back, pops up in the air, and he bats it waist level, top corner on Kirk McLean. No, I would be well against this. And hell, I've scored many of my goals knocking pucks out of midair.
It's funny because I now that I think about it, I think of December. I think it was December 10th, 2005. Rangers in St. Louis. Rangers power play in overtime. Marty Rachinsky takes a one-timer and it misses the net, goes behind the net and hits a rut behind the net against the boards. It pops straight up. Patrick Lalime is in net for St. Louis. And the puck, no one has an idea where the puck is. And it just comes down, goes down Patrick Lalime's net, and the Rangers win the game in overtime. On that. So, I mean, are we battling that too? I mean, let's sort out the kicking motion and the goaltender interference nonsense before we start talking about disallowing batted in goals or Michigan goals or whatever the case may be. Like, it's just stupid.
I've got to read this one out loud because it's going to make my wife so happy just to hear somebody comment this. Picture it, Sicily, 1922. I deal with my Rangers' anger and sarcasm. Sorry. But that, if for anybody that doesn't know, that's a Golden Girls reference. So, but Phil, no, that's also a skill play. That's Paul Correa used to do that. And hell, another one of the best goals I could talk about. That one that Sidney Crosby bats out of the air to himself. He nearly stick handles in the air.
Jaromir Jagr did that against the Flyers years ago, sliding on the ground.
Yeah, there's another guy that did. And look, here's the other thing. I know players are getting good at the Michigan. And I know that that's what Steven said, to battle the Michigan, I guess. No, I'm not doing that. I'm going to solve the stick rule.
Here's a better idea. Play defense on it.
Yeah. Whatever happened. By the way, that's what's also stupid about sports right now, Phil. It's well, I have played net. And now granted, I played net in deck hockey. I was an ice hockey player. I was a forward. And I have played some I've played some defense over my life. But I probably played better defense than Andre Miller right now, whom the Rangers should not re-sign and should trade. But like this one, the Kadri goal last week, that was great. I know, I didn't play well at all. I had to learn.
Here's the issue. We're battling Michigan goals when Michigan goals aren't even that frequent.
Yeah, and there's a reason why we still talk about them.
Come on.
Yeah. But John Radigan also said this: the refs in Toronto can't interpret the rules that we have, so let's give them some more. I think it's also what they need is more clarification. That's another thing too. But John, it's an obvious thing that's right there. It's just, yeah. NHL, stop overthinking it. Because Phil, I started saying it just now. It's now, if you can't stop it, regulate it out of the game instead of let the defenses try to stop it, like the NFL and kickoffs. Like, granted, it was actually a kickoff return for a touchdown the other day, which was shocking enough, but still.
I think we're going apples to oranges here, dude. Apples to oranges if you're talking about Avery and what he did to Brodeur.
Then really? I can answer that. One. And Avery, here's the thing. Avery scored on that play. He wasn't the one that allowed the goal. How do I put it? Avery was doing the waving, but then he backed up. He's fed in the slot, shoots, scores. So you could say it was the Avery play, but it really wasn't Avery trying to be in Brodeur's face and doing that. I also think, I know they did it because of a safety issue. I think if you're going to be that stupid, you have at it. All your padding is on your front, not your back. And you're going to take, I think it was a Feder Tootin was the point man at the time for the Rangers. Take a one-timer from him, and that'll stop that right away, right in the back.
No, I think this is where we start to get a little overboard here because you're opening too much up to subjection and a judgment call.
Right.
Like you can't turn around and say, oh, hey, well, this player wasn't involved in this and such and such. There's too much gray area with that.
Because then if that's the case, let's open up this onion a little bit. If the player's going in, here's the blue line, and there's a player over here not involved in the play, what would stop him from going all the way here?
You might as well just play carry over offside like they do in roller hockey.
And that's stupid. I hate that. I've always hated that. Then lead passes are taken out. So I would rather have the offsides rule have a floating skate over the line, even though it's harder to do. And you just got to keep it underneath your hip. You can't have people trying to kick all the way up to people's necks. You know what I mean with that. Which contract do you hate worse? The Mika extension or the Igor extension?
Igor.
It's not even close. It's Igor.
It makes no sense. At least the Benajad's contract made sense at the time. You couldn't see the fall off coming with Zibanejad this soon and this hard. And I think there are other things that are contributing to that, obviously, but it just doesn't make sense to sign this guy when this team was in the middle of a free fall, couldn't figure out whether or not they were going to actually get things together. And then you had already identified that the core that you were working with wasn't good enough, as I said before. It's stupid. They didn't have to do this, and they could have just waited, and I think the numbers would have fallen. And for anybody who tells me that he would have gotten 12 or 13 million on the open market, good luck. Find me somebody who would have given him that, and actually, because I don't think you can, and I don't think anybody was going to give him the money that I think 11 million. I think he would have gotten a tough time trying to find. I think everybody looks at Bobrovsky's contract. That thing was an albatross before 2023.
Oh yeah, hands down.
Like, I mean, oh God, I don't even want to entertain this question. I really don't. Stop.
Well, Phil, if I can about the Igor contract, first let me say this: we've broke it down way too much, but I'll say this real quick and then move to the Zibanejad contract. The Igor contract doesn't kick in till next season when he turns 30, and 8 years later, he's going to get paid $11.5 million. It's all based off of one really good season. The rest of his seasons have not been this elite level that you need to blow the doors off and pay him so much more. I have gotten into screaming matches with people. This is one of the worst I could find. Let me now go to the Mika Zibanejad contract and also give Phil a little stroll down memory lane. See, the first ever bar talk that we did was shot. It was just called Shot, Beer, and Round. And it was for St. Patrick's Day was the theme. And I asked Phil if Mika Zibanejad was going to get the 20 points because he started out really slow. And Phil was like, no, well, he's not making it. Don't worry about it. That night, he went off, scored the 6 points against the Flyers all in one period. And then he did it again 2 weeks later. The Rangers had to know he was way too streaky, power play hungry, and they had to see all the faults in his game. They had to see him shy away from when the game gets more physical, but we were so distracted and so captivated by 1920 and his 5-goal game. We never looked at all these things. Now that his numbers have dipped, now we can see them. And that's why it's so difficult. It is so difficult to look at him right now. And at least he put up a 90-point season after that, Felk. That's another one.
Yeah, I don't think that it's just I really don't think you can sit there and say, oh, well, you could have seen Zibanejad coming, because I don't think anybody could have seen this coming the way that it did. I think you're going to tell me that you're a liar. Sorry. But the Shesterkin one is worse because of the fact that you had a player that you didn't need to re-sign if you were going to go into a retool. And not only that, but he wanted to reset the entire market. He wanted to reset everything. He wanted to be paid like he was head and shoulders above everybody, like he was world's better. If that is the case, you have to play like that every year.
And every game.
Every game. You have to be that much better. Dominik Hasek, for an 8-year stretch, had won 6 Vezina trophies. 6 Vezina trophies. And the only years he didn't win the Vezina trophy were 96 and 2000. He was hurt in 2000. 96, he led the NHL in losses, funny enough. Jim Carey had an insane year and won a Vezina. And he had a year kind of like what Igor had, considering the scoring at the time. I'm not saying Igor is Jim Carey, obviously, because Jim Carey was gone from the league practically like 2-3 years later. But they have the same amount of great years. Igor's had good years after. I mean, you want to talk about his playoff numbers? Okay. But you don't pay someone world-beating, record-setting, market-resetting numbers just because of his playoffs. That's how you get a Brian Bickle contract. And those contracts don't work because you're paying somebody based on a small sample size. And it's not how you do it. It's not. It hasn't worked. It hasn't, and it's not going to work. And they made the mistake. They made the mistake for whatever reason, and it's not working out.
Phil, I can't help but also say this. They trade Jacob Trouba. Whether or not it's the right move or not.
Who paid Rick Nash for regular season numbers?
But
who? Answer that question for me, and then you have your answer.
Well, the Rangers, I thought they signed Rick Nash once he got...
No.
Yeah?
Columbus.
Yeah, Columbus signed
Columbus paid Rick Nash. The Rangers traded for him.
Yeah. Phil, so the Rangers trade Jacob Trouba, clear up the cap space. There's upheaval in the locker room. And the first move is, all right, we're going to re-sign the goalie to record money. This is what I have a problem with Drury, and this is also why I'm thinking the move, it has to be from above. You can't be this stupid. That's stupid. Because if they're pissed off in the locker room about the way Drury just got rid of Jacob Trouba, and then you mean to tell me that the first move is to pay a guy? Oh, whether or not you want to think Igor earned it or not, it's suddenly, well, he's gone because you wanted money. That's going to create problems. And then, do you know what goalie, I believe, leads the NHL in 5-goal games allowed in the calendar year? I'll give you a hint. It's Igor.
Igor Shesterkin.
Oh, my goodness.
And I know, it's the defense. It's the defense. Well, you know what? When you're the goalie and you're paid to be the best thing since sliced bread, then you're going to have to carry the team. You know, there are times where you are going to be expected to carry the team and make those saves when your defense falls. Lundqvist did it for years.
Yeah. And don't give me the quality of the defense. We broke this down. In 2006, Lundqvist's rookie year, he had a horrendous defense, if you want to talk about talent.
Michael Roosevelt and Marek Malik were the top pair for 3 years, for the first 3 years of Henrik Lundqvist's career. Don't want to hear it.
And hell, 2009, were they much better? No?
Yes. The best. But Igor's not the best goalie in the league. I'm sorry. He's not. Connor Hellebuck is. I don't care about Igor's playoff numbers. I don't care. Because the same people that turn around and tell me that Igor Shesterkin doesn't have any help on defense are the same people that are blaming Connor Hellebuck for the team in front of him not getting the job done. So you can't have it both ways. Get off the fence. Pick a side.
And by the way, Real Deal Prime Time right here is saying, is Kreider going? Who do you expect a lot of moves to be made around the league at the deadline? It's going to be the Rangers. Rangers are going to sell off anything that they can.
Oh, absolutely.
Everything must go. As the way that I put it on the Instagram page, who should go? And it's Gary Oldman from The Professional screaming, everyone. But Kreider's gone. Kreider was, but I've been saying this all year. As soon as Lafreniere signed his deal, Chris Kreider's days were numbered, because you can't have Chris Kreider taking up the first power play time. And at 34 years old, he's gonna fade. It's just gonna happen.
Do you know? Honestly, I love how people bring these stats up. But do you know who's actually leading goal save above expected this year?
Lucas Dostal?
It's Connor Hellebuck.
Connor Hellebuck. All right.
With 24.9. Do you know who the second closest goaltender in the league is? It's Lucas Dostal in Anaheim with 16. Igor is at 7. He's not even close to either of them. I'm sorry. This is lunacy. It's lunacy that people keep talking about these numbers. Connor Hellebuck is not only leading in every counting stat, but he's leading in the analytics too, and he's leading it by a landslide. It's a long shot away. Like this is crazy. I'm not being a bit extreme.
No, I'm sorry. No, you're not.
Have you seen the numbers?
Yeah. No, he's not. He's really not. Everybody's got this magic stat with Shesterkin, Phil. I don't understand where it's coming from.
So if anybody wants to go on my Twitter, you can go on my Twitter at 92 and 82. It doesn't matter if anyone's bringing up Hellebuck, doesn't matter who you're bringing up, but Lucas Dostal and Karel Vejmelka are 2 and 3 in the league in goal save above the expected. 2 and 3. So why is Igor Shesterkin behind them when they're icing guys like Kolyachonok? Okay, here, let's look at this. Okay, number 1, Connor Hellebuck, 24.9. Number 2, Lucas Dostal, 16 flat. Karel Vejmelka, number 3, 14.3. Igor Shesterkin is nearly 4 back of Vejmelka at 10.4, and he's number 7. Like, are we okay? So if your point is that the defense in front of him is the problem, which I understand that's what you're getting at because that's why you're bringing that up, then why are we paying this guy like he's this second coming of Dominik Hasek and he's being paid to carry an entire team? Do we understand the point that we're making here? Because there are so many people that are terrible at understanding this. Why are we going to pay the goaltender as if he's the greatest thing since sliced bread when he can't carry a team with this much talent in front of him?
And this isn't like it's a team that was vastly different. They changed around their systems slightly to go to a more hybrid system.
Bingo. Thank you.
Yeah, it's still the same thing. And look, again, we're going to get to Jacob's question in a second, and we're going to wrap it up pretty soon, guys. But the problem is that you're paying him like he's this godlike figure. The reality is, take away his Vezina Trophy season, his numbers
come nowhere close to being worked out.
And in every metric, Ilya Sorokin is the more comparable contract.
It's not part of the market, though, because he demanded to be paid $3 million more than a guy that signed for $8.5 million, had a Vezina, led the league in NHL in saves and shots against 3 times since he's come up, and won a Jennings. You can't tell me that it's part of the market when he signed that deal in October 2023. It's a year. It's not 5 years.
And again, what the Rangers were doing is the same thing they do with Jacob Trouba. It's a lot like
they bid against themselves.
Yeah, they bid against themselves. It's like when Amy Wong was buying the car in Futurama, where it's like, oh, what's the sticker price? Oh, it should only be, you should go higher. I think it's auction. No, you own the player. And by the way, if you think somebody's going to pay him $13 million, you let him. Igor Shesterkin is not that good to let it. Who would you rather have right now on this team? Igor Shesterkin or Mikko Rantanen?
Mikko Rantanen by far.
It's not close.
It's not just because what difference is it going to make if this guy is letting in 3+ goals a night, 1 or 2 of them are soft? Why? How is that going to help us?
And Phil, we could talk about 2-on-1s all day and odd man rushes. Ryan McDonough snuck a shot through Shesterkin he should have. That's those analytic things that everybody's like, oh, well, he didn't snipe it. He got it through his arm. That's one goal he should have.
Yeah, noted sniper Ryan McDonough, whose last 10 goal season was back in 2017 when he was still with the Rangers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a mean shooter right there.
Good defensive defenseman. But you know what? Let's not worry about the problems. Let's talk about solutions. Phil, this is what Josh is asking right here, and then I'm gonna start playing the song, and we'll wrap it up with maybe another comment. But Jacob's asking right here. How do you guys retool and rebuild the Rangers? Realistic options only, and possibly a 2 or 3 year window. due to the competing with Igor's contract, which is, again, why you don't sign Igor. Because imagine if they brought up Dylan Garand and he puts up serviceable numbers at no money. Then you can talk about signing anybody you want.
And I mean, the thing is that there was just, again, if you identified the fact that this core wasn't good enough, which Drury did over the summer, why would you go and bid against yourself to sign the freaking goalie like he was Dominik Hasek in his prime? And here's another one. Dominik Hasek won the Vezina and the Hart in 1998. Do you know who the top scorer on his team was? Miroslav Shatan. You want to know how many points he had that year? 46. Do you know how many total votes defensemen got in front of him for the Norris Trophy? 3. They were all for Alex Zhitnik, who finished 12 overall in Norris voting that year because of 3 votes that he had gotten.
And it's amazing.
Dominik Hasek did it by himself. You don't pay Igor Shesterkin. You do not pay Igor Shesterkin.
You don't pay the goaltender.
Do it by himself because he can't. There is nothing wrong with saying that Igor Shesterkin is not Dominik Hasek. No one is. But you cannot pay Igor Shesterkin to be Dominik Hasek because he's not. He's not even Henrik Lundqvist.
He's not even Henrik Lundqvist. And by the way, we could argue he's not even Mike Richter, by the way, guys.
Nah, he's better than Mike Richter.
Well, you can make that argument. At least
Mike Richter has a cup. What else does Richter have that Shesterkin doesn't?
A save percentage that went back up at some point. His Shesterkin's save percentage and goals against are doing this. Whoop.
Richter's did a lot of that.
Right. But at least Mike Richter did plenty of, at least rebounded seasons. If Igor Shesterkin has a 910 save percentage and an over 3 goals against, what the hell are the Rangers paying him for? And don't give me the defense in front of him. Then how are you going to improve the defense when you're spending more money on the goalie?
I don't want to hear about the defense in front of him either because the defenses in front of Dostal and Vejmelka are not good. Vejmelka is missing Dursey and Marino. That's 2 of his top 4 defensemen. He hasn't had them all year.
And again, if somebody wants, Johnny Red saying, insiders are saying he was going to get more money, you let them pay the money.
Let them pay him at that point.
Let them pay him.
I don't understand how you could sit there and bid against yourself to a guy that needed a mental reset last year and had to have Jonathan Quick step in for a month and save the season. That's a massive red flag. What Chris Drury should be fired for that, honestly.
Yeah.
You should be absolutely fired for that. Stupid.
All right, so going to Jacob's question right here. Let's go with what you think in quickly 2-3 years. How do you think the Rangers could get back to contending?
Oh, I mean, I have a feeling that once whatever unfolds, they're going to probably move the guys that need to be moved. I think Chris Kreider is gone. Yeah, I really do. I think he's the next one gone. I think Mika Zibanejad will probably waive at that point. He'll be sent out.
That's later.
Yeah, that's a later point in time, but he'll waive eventually because his buddy's gone. They've identified that they don't want these guys here anymore. And good. And you know what? It's going to cost them a season, but I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. But once that happens, you can really rebuild. The only thing is that, you're going to see an $11.5 million goaltender that can't carry a team in front of him. And you got to wonder if he'll waive then at that point.
The next question after that would be, what do you do with the locker room? Who gets the captaincy? Can you actually turn the keys over to Alexei Lafreniere? Because the Rangers did not trust him. They took him.
I don't think you can turn it over to Lafreniere right now. I still think I think especially with him and the way that he's played ever since that contract was signed, that extension was signed, you need to really get on him about consistency. He needs to be more consistent. Sorry. The guy that really is kind of there and standing out right now to me is Trocheck.
Yeah.
And that's if you want to keep him, though. But Elliot Friedman the other day said that if they were looking to deal Vincent Trocheck, teams would line up left and right to get him.
Hands
because
down.
even if he's not that 70-point Vincent Trocheck, $5.6 million for what he is a bargain.
And and that's why that deal actually isn't that bad of a deal. And his no trade protection kicks in, I believe, at the end of this season is when it starts kicking in. But Phil, realistically speaking, they bottom out. They get in because I think they're going to be a bottom 5 team. I can't believe I'm saying that.
Yeah, I think they're going to. I definitely think they're going to be a bottom 5 team,
especially now with this Shesterkin injury. Because look, can't exactly trust a 40-year-old Jonathan Quick and Louis Domingue, hoping that spicy pork is going to save him. But
spicy pork isn't saving anybody.
Yeah, it's not. So all right, let's start with that. They bottom out. Let's say they get Higgins or the other kid. I'm trying to think of what his name was. Let's say they get Higgins. You're still looking at developing him. Maybe you're looking at him making his NHL debut possibly with 2 years. Let's say it could happen next year. They have to rebuild that defense. Keandre Miller, goodbye. Let somebody else figure you out. And then wouldn't be the first time the Rangers gave up on a Miller in the last 5 years. So let's start with that one.
Now it's 6 going on 7.
6 going on 7. So let's start with that. You got to rebuild this team. You got to have an identity. You got to figure out who you're going to be. You can't go with retread coaches anymore. And if you bring in a development coach, he's got to actually develop them. Because I don't know what the hell David Quinn was doing. Because he didn't develop Kakko. He didn't develop Kravtsov. He didn't develop Lafreniere. He kind of didn't develop Miller. Adam Fox, who played years in college. There was your development. So the Rangers need to figure out what team they want to be, get an organizational philosophy, and go with it from there. My question here, real quick, Phil. I'm going to start playing out the song because right now we're over 2 hours. My question to you, Phil, should it be Chris Drury?
There's a lot to process here. And to me, if they wanted to move on from Chris Drury, I'd be okay with it. I'm not sure if he's the guy. I really not. The one thing that I know that I agree with him on is that this core is not fit. They're not fit. Otherwise, I don't know. Well,
Hasek won 2 Stanley Cups.
Hasek won 2 Stanley Cups, but he didn't win in Buffalo. That's what I think Snappers is getting at.
All right, and Snappers, you're right about that one. Because
nobody can do it by himself. Yes, he couldn't do it by himself in Buffalo. But, I mean, context. He lost to a team that won a President's Trophy that was very close the year before in '98. They got to the conference finals. And then that's funny. But it's they lost to the Red Wings in the conference finals in '98. The Red Wings were the 2-time defending they were the defending champs, and they ended up winning it again that year because they were too good for Washington. And then the Stars were a team that had 5 Hall of Fame players within Modano, Hull, Zubov, Belfour, and Carbonneau. And then they had a 500-goal, 1,000-point Pat Verbeek. And then they had a 3-time Selke Trophy winning wing in Yuri Lettinen, who's considered one of the best defensive players ever by any standard.
Yes.
So they lost to a complete team. They had depth guys on that team like Richard Matvichuk and Mike Keane and Brian Scribbland, who were great. Dallas was one of the more complete teams up and down the line that we've seen in a while.
And look, Buffalo put up a great fight.
And they did. They were 1 goal away from getting to Game 7. Just remember that. Hasek got them far. Hasek. Wasn't anybody else. It was Dominic Hasek. Was Stu Barnes the guy for them? Come on.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
I mean, that's why with that, you have to stop and say, no. Lou was asking, by the way, right here, do you trade Igor this year?
Good, I would. I would absolutely do it.
Phil, I have a lot of problems with that now. Because now you sign him to the deal, he expects to be here. I talk about signaling to free agents and other players. You cannot sign a player only to trade him. I know contractually speaking, the Rangers can do it. If they do that, I think that raises a lot of eyebrows, and you're going to lose some people. Yeah, there's a Real Deal Prime right here saying Matthew Barnaby, and hey, Gunton and Granny. But does he have a wife that's a nurse by chance? Hopefully not. Josh, by the way, thank you. I don't know if Chris Drury's earned that chance. That's the problem I have.
Yeah, I have to. Those are really the exact words for him. I don't know if he's earned that chance.
Bill, this is going to be a long rebuild for the New York Rangers, and I kind of have a feeling the anti-Patrick Ewing is coming if they bottom out. I'm just throwing this out there. Worst team in the NHL. They do the reverse President's Trophy, which is amazing because they might as well be Sandra Bullock, who won a Razzie and an Oscar in the same year. So why not? But if they do this, I can't help but look over and go, the NHL's got to rig it so Higgins does not go to the Rangers. Even though it would be a good story, New York kid going to the New York Rangers. But there's no chance. There's no chance. And, all right, there we go, Snappers. There we go. Will USA still win the gold in U.S. Juniors, you think?
Yeah, the one team I would look out for is Sweden. Sweden plays a very, very solid, structured game. Their breakouts are phenomenal. Their defensive structure is great. That's the team I would look out for. The other thing with them, two other things, that they have experience. They were in the gold medal game last year and they lost to the U.S. And they're hungry for revenge. I mean, a lot of their guys return too, just like U.S. But U.S., they put a chokehold on Canada. Only one goal for Canada. And Canada's had a lot of trouble scoring this tournament. So you could look at that a couple of different ways and say, you know what, hey, maybe Canada is not the team. But the Rangers, the U.S. are, they look like a favorite. I don't know if they're the hands down favorite right now. Because, like I said, I just wouldn't sleep on Sweden right now. That team is the one team that would scare me more than anything.
Andy, Happy New Year, by the way.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. Hope everybody had a good and safe New Year. Hopefully nobody drank and drive last night. I literally had to walk to Albies just 3 blocks over, so I did not have to drive, so I'm happy about that.
Billy Joel absolutely brought the house down at UBS, so I can't say enough of that. And had a great time with that. So you just think about it, at the end of the year, Peter Laviolette, Chris Drury could be fired at trade deadline. Chris Kreider could be dealt. Like, there's so much chaos going on. But by the way, one thing we didn't get, and we're running out of time right now, but Artemi Panarin, when do you approach him, if you haven't already?
That's another one. I would have the discussions.
I'd
imagine that this is something that the brass has probably got to be talking about.
That you could get a good player and a first-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would do it now, especially if you plan on selling. That's an asset that can get you something at the deadline. The only issue is that it may have to be an off-season deal, just because it's going to be tough for a high-salary player to move mid-season, especially when he's got another year left to turn.
I would consider it in the Rangers case, up in the offer, and just getting Eat money. Eat money for a year. Fine. 1 year. Eat money. You're not winning a cup next year. That's what we know. Guys, everybody, thank you very much for joining us, Big Apple Hockey. We were hoping to talk more about things that weren't the New York Rangers' demise, but you know what? Look what we got. All right. Again, thank you very much, everyone. We are out of here. I'm off to order Chinese food.